Welcome back to It's Called Football. It's that time again. It's almost time for the weekend, which means it's time for another match day in the Premier League. We are now on to match day 7, so let's get right into the fixtures coming up over the next few days. We start off with actually a very big clash. Uh, Early in the morning, if you're over here in North America, on Saturday morning. In fact, at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time, we are going to see a potentially electric clash between Aston Villa and Brighton. These two sides finished seventh and sixth, respectively, in the league last season. For Brighton, especially, a huge achievement, given that finish in the league last year put them into European competition this season for the first time in their history. In fact, the fixture between these two last year near the end of the season actually solidified their positions as sixth for Brighton and seventh for Aston Villa, when it was still possible for Villa to get sixth at the time. But both teams are doing very well again. In fact, Aston Villa are sitting in the top half, doing well so far again this season, and Brighton are currently sitting in third place. So should be a very, very good clash, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit. The majority of the Saturday games then see at 10 a.m. In North America. You will see Bournemouth host Arsenal, who are looking to bounce back after their rather disappointing draw at home against Tottenham last week. Bournemouth, obviously, without a win so far this season, and will be looking to get that on the board at home in front of their own fans. Arsenal, however, will be a tough test for them. Everton then play host to Luton Town. Both sides in this fixture will be buoyed by recent results and will be desperate to make sure they keep their good momentum going. Manchester United actually hosted Crystal Palace in the League Cup fixture on Tuesday this week and won that quite comfortably. Now they have to host them again, this time in the league. And Crystal Palace's form hasn't been amazing, but United themselves have been a little bit patchy. Yes, they beat Burnley last weekend and they beat Palace in the cup. That cup fixture perhaps will fill them with a little more confidence going into this game, knowing that they have just recently beaten Crystal Palace already. And then we also see Newcastle host Burnley in what could be a very, very fun match to watch, especially if Newcastle are in the goal scoring form that saw them hit 8 past Sheffield United last weekend. Burnley, of course, are one of those sides that are still trying to find their first win, and it has to be said, Newcastle away is a very tough place to hope and pick up your first win of the season. We'll also continue to see on Saturday West Ham play host to Sheffield United. West Ham have been in decent form despite losing their last two fixtures, and considering that their defeats have come to Manchester City and Liverpool, who sit in the top two places in the league right now, that perhaps is understandable. Sheffield United currently sit rock bottom in 20th place in the league and will probably not be very confident going to West Ham right now and trying to get a result. Manchester City travel to Wolves. Wolves looked good in the very first match day against Manchester United, but since then haven't really maintained consistently good play. And there are concerns, obviously, here that Manchester City might run riot in this game. And then comes possibly the big clash of this weekend. Tottenham Hotspur hosting Liverpool. For Spurs, quite a tough run of fixtures given that they had Arsenal away last weekend, which they handled well to their credit, and now play host to Liverpool, who seem to be going through a resurgent season right now after last season's disappointments. Sunday has only one fixture this weekend as Nottingham Forest play host to Brentford. Brentford will want to bounce back for sure after their defeat against Everton last weekend, which which is obviously going to be tricky because Nottingham Forest at home are their own beast. Forest, of course, lost 2-0 away to Manchester City, and they also will be looking to bounce back. And then Monday's fixture to cap off Matchday 7, we see the Battle of West London as Fulham and Chelsea go head to head. Chelsea, of course, are still struggling for form in the league, but they did manage to get a 1-0 win over Brighton in the League Cup in midweek. They won 1-0, as I said, and that was their only goal scored in September. So, or at least so far. By the time they play on Monday, obviously, we will be into October, and so it remains to be seen whether Chelsea can perhaps score again, because at the moment that seems to be their main uh, deficiency in their squad. Now, in addition to the fixtures of Matchday 7, the Premier League has also rescheduled the game between Luton Town and Burnley that was supposed to take place in Matchday 2, but had to be postponed because Luton Town Stadium had not yet been ready and deemed up to scratch for Premier League matches. Obviously, since then, it has been that way, and that fixture will go ahead on Tuesday for any of you that might be interested to watch that battle near the bottom of the table. Burnley and Luton Town are currently sitting in 18th and 19th, and it could be a chance for one of them to start to pull away from the relegation zone. Just a reminder for how the league table looks at the moment. City is ahead on points, with Liverpool not far behind. Brighton very close on their tail, with Tottenham and Arsenal breathing down their necks. Aston Villa, like we said earlier, finished in seventh last season. They currently sit in sixth, and it's quite exciting that we're going to see two key clashes within the top six in this match week, with Aston Villa and Brighton sixth against third, and then Tottenham and Liverpool with fourth against second. It could be a weekend with a lot of movement in the top part of the table, depending on how results go. A reminder, of course, as well, that City, Liverpool, Tottenham, and Arsenal are currently still the four unbeaten sides in this division, and Arsenal and Tottenham maintained that with their draw last week, but Tottenham and Liverpool now have their own challenge on their hands because the victor obviously will have momentum and bragging rights uh, to be able to end the other's unbeaten run. Brighton obviously will not want to give up their momentum. 5 wins out of six so far is fantastic, and we will have to see how those games go. West Ham, Newcastle, Manchester United, and Crystal Palace could obviously continue to remain in the top half if they get decent results. The interesting one there is ninth against 10th, Manchester United and Crystal Palace. The winner of that game again will get to pull away a little bit and get closer to the top of the league table. In the bottom half, obviously the standout name for seasoned viewers of the Premier League is that Chelsea is currently sitting in 14th. They will hope that they beat 11th placed Fulham on Monday to try and sneak maybe into the top half, depending on how United's result goes against Crystal Palace. Um, Also, if you remember, Everton moved up a few spots after their victory at Brentford and will be hoping to beat 18th place Luton Town to continue their rise up the table as well. Luton Town and Burnley, if you remember, have been one game fewer played so far in this season, given that they've played five up to this point while everyone else has played six. But obviously, by the time we end up doing our recap video from this match day, we are going to do that on Tuesday after Luton Town and Burnley have played that rescheduled match as well. So we will keep you up to speed on everything that happens from match day 7, as well as that rescheduled fixture from match day 2. So two matches that we think you should really tune into over this match day for what hopefully will have the best quality football. The first one is Saturday's late kickoff match. There's no other match going on at the same time as this one on Saturday, and it will be Tottenham against Liverpool. It's usually a very entertaining fixture. Both sides are playing excellent football. Tottenham obviously revived under their new coach, the Australian Ange Postecoglou, and Liverpool look like they've rebuilt their midfield well with Klopp making sure that he's brought in adequate reinforcements and got Liverpool playing the way that people remember them playing, basically. But this should be an excellent match. Try to tune in if you're able to. Think this is never one that anyone regrets watching. The second match is also on Saturday. Like we said, this is the early match on Saturday morning. Obviously, if you're in the UK, it's a perfect lunchtime fixture. If you're in North America, you may have to wake up a little early. So, if you're that interested, obviously you can set an alarm. Aston Villa and Brighton both are playing good football. Both actually have something to prove, given that Aston Villa got knocked out of the League Cup by Everton in midweek. That was Villa's first defeat to Everton since 2016, and Brighton lost to Chelsea 1-0 in midweek to get knocked out of the League Cup themselves. So both of them perhaps stinging a little bit from their midweek defeats and will want to prove themselves again against a quality opponent. Some of the big stories that are surrounding the narratives on this match day. First of all, Everton, who built on their victory at Brentford last weekend with, like we said, a good win against Aston Villa on in the middle of the week, and they have a chance to go 3 for 3 if they can beat Luton this weekend. They will continue their surge and could finish around 13th or higher in the league table at the end of this weekend. The other half of Liverpool, the other team from there, actually Liverpool, with Jurgen Klopp as the manager that you can see there in the purple hoodie, and one of their new signings, Dominic Szoboszlai, the Hungarian. He has been a revelation for this midfield, and Liverpool will hope that he can continue doing what he's doing. He scored another excellent goal midweek to knock out Leicester in the League Cup, and his form is growing and growing by the week. They should feel fairly comfortable going into this match against Tottenham. They're in good form. They're one of two English sides that are currently unbeaten in all competitions. Liverpool and Arsenal are the only ones so far that are yet to lose a match in any competition this season from England. And Liverpool will be hoping that they remain one of those two by the end of this weekend. And finally, Villa and Brighton. Both teams have fantastic players, excellent game changers, and can turn on the style in the blink of an eye if they're left unguarded. So this is going to be a very interesting tactical battle to watch, and there are some really talented players that are going to be on display. Hopefully, we get some great goals in the games involving all of these teams. So, how do we envision these results panning out? Villa and Brighton, I think, is pretty much guaranteed goals in one way or another. Either it's going to be end to end with both sides scoring, or one side may end up running away with it. I think that Brighton are just a little bit too strong for Aston Villa, and they will come out 3-1 winners in this game, but it's a very unpredictable fixture. Arsenal have been very good on the road so far. In fact, both of their away games from their first six have been 1-0 wins. They've had to fight hard, but ultimately their defense has stood up well. However, there are some injury concerns at the moment throughout Arsenal's midfield and forward line, and I think that ultimately can cause a little more pressure to be placed on them. I think Arsenal's defense may just let one goal slip this time, but I do think their attack should be strong enough to see them pass Bournemouth. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 win to Arsenal. I know for those of you that have been watching Shock, I'm actually predicting that my team may win this game, hopefully reasonably comfortably. Arsenal, please don't ruin the weekend for me. Everton and Luton, I think Everton, especially with their recent results, will be able to get past Luton, who will also have one eye on their match against Burnley coming up. I think in Luton's eyes, if they're thinking really sensibly and logically about it, they probably have a better chance of picking up some points against Burnley, who are in a very similar position to them, than traveling to Everton, which is always difficult. We saw Arsenal have to work really hard to get their win there a couple of weeks ago, and I think Luton don't quite have the same ability on the pitch in their players to be able to do the same. So I think this one will be a fairly routine win for Everton. Manchester United, like we said earlier, will be boosted by their win against Palace midweek, although there was heavy rotation for both teams to give players who hadn't played as much some game time. But I think even the first team for Manchester United should be a bit too strong for Palace, and they'll come out 3-1 winners. Newcastle. Um, Newcastle are a very strange side because there are games where they really look like they have to work hard to win the match, and then there are others like last weekend where they look like scoring every time they go up the field. They did that in the opening game of this season against Aston Villa when they won 5-1. They did it last week against Sheffield United where they won 8-0. But then they did seem to either not be as confident or just lose focus a little in their other games where they lost against Manchester City and Liverpool and Brighton. Newcastle did beat Brentford a couple of weeks ago, but that was hard fought. I don't think that's going to be the case here. I don't think Burnley have shown too much, especially when they're away. And so I'm going to go for a 4-0 win for Newcastle. West Ham and Sheffield United should, on paper at least, be a fairly routine win for the Hammers. So I'm going to say that this one will be 3-1. Sheffield United may get a goal now and then. We have seen them fight fairly well against Manchester City, and I do think last weekend's result against Newcastle may have been a little bit of a fluke. There were other off the pitch incidents that might have been affecting the emotions of Sheffield United players, and perhaps that had cost them that result. I don't think they have enough to beat West Ham, but I do think they'll score. Wolves and Manchester City, I think City are just kind of going from strength to strength. Yes, they got knocked out in the League Cup by Newcastle midweek, but that was also a very heavily rotated side. All their big stars were rested, which means I think they'll be fit and raring to go for this match. For City, it seems like it's hardly a challenge these days, whether they're playing home or away. And I'm going actually for a 5-0 win for Manchester City in this match. Spurs and Liverpool is probably the toughest fixture to call, even on a good day, let alone with these results and these fixtures. I think that Liverpool's attack at the moment have too much for Tottenham's defense. Not that Tottenham's players in defense are poor. I just think that they haven't yet developed all of the understanding necessary to combat an attack of Liverpool's caliber. Spurs do have decent attacks going forward, and Liverpool have been prone to conceding the odd goal from mistakes and such. So I do think Spurs will score. But ultimately, I think Liverpool's attack will overwhelm them, much like how Arsenal could and should have done last week. But I think Liverpool will hold out a little bit better and come away 3-1. Brentford, I think, have a little more caliber in their team than Forest do. Forest do have the ability to rotate a lot of players of good quality, given the number of signings they've brought in. And I do think they will score. But I think Brentford, having been narrowly knocked out by Arsenal in midweek in the League Cup, will again want to start getting back on track. They had an excellent season last year and the year before, and I think their manager will kind of tell the players, you know what, enough's enough. We really should be doing better than this, and they'll come away winners. Fulham haven't looked overly impressive, and yes, they've gotten wins here and there, but the fact that they drew away to Crystal Palace, and then barely beat Luton the week before that. Doesn't fill me with much confidence despite Chelsea's poor form. Chelsea obviously will be a little bit encouraged by their victory over a side as good as Brighton in midweek, and I think ultimately that will allow Chelsea to come away here with the victory. That is where we are going to leave you for today. Hopefully, you're able to tune into the football. Hopefully, you've been enjoying our videos. Please drop a like on it if you've been enjoying it. And please don't be hesitant to share your thoughts on our videos or your predictions for this weekend's games in the comments. But please like it and share this video, subscribe to the channel. We are going to be back in a few days once Matchday 7 is complete and Luton Town's fixture with Burnley has been played as well. But for now, this is where we leave you. And remember, it's called football.